Hello there, YouTube crew. I'm the real Dill, and today we're looking at my favorite Mission Impossible movie, Rogue Nation. And it, I think, is pretty much a remake of 2, but in the style of kind of mixed style of 1 and 4. Directorial style, tone. It has even more of a noirish feel than the original, but juxtaposed with the same action and momentum of Ghost Protocol. And then, of course, it's rounded out with a reserved but genuine romance between equals. Now, that's the absolute perfect blend for my taste, 4 points. Mood. Rogue Nation harkens back to the psychological intrigue of the original while delivering a higher level of thrill and exhilaration. How could anyone not buy into and love this movie? 3 points. Score. Joe Kramer nails this score. I especially like how he folds in the actual opera music into the score of the movie, as well as the addition of the romantic theme for Ilsa and Ethan. Like, it's just, I love that so much. That would be what really puts this into my favorite of the scores so far, but I've also got to highlight the choice to withhold music from the majority of the Taurus sequence and car chase to instead emphasize the sound effects. Excellent decision, 3.5 points. Title sequence. We've got a similar style to one where a match being lit leads into large individual credits with a scrolling background. There's excellent momentum and movement throughout, and my favorite title reveal so far. But wait, there's an additional closing title sequence, and this one being black and white except for the lit red fuse that appears throughout every shot, much like the original title sequences, plus 5 points. Cinematography. There are the profile shots reminiscent of 1, including a couple POVs, but there is also the push-ins of 2, even a bit of slow-mo on Ilsa here. We get some extreme shadowy, noirish lighting that's great. Of course, the action set pieces are in the same vein as Ghost Protocol, though. Truly the best mix, 4 points. Character. Ethan Hunt. We see our protagonist beat down to his most deranged, and yet his team, as well as us, the audience, still trust he will succeed in the end. This movie's villain is the first to specifically target Ethan's compulsion to gamble. But instead of Hunt suppressing this urge, he maximizes it in the smartest way possible. This is my favorite portrayal of Ethan, but 6 may surpass it. 3.5 points. Team. This team has the most returning members, with Benji, Brant, and Luther all joining in. Benji becomes a metadata analyst for the CIA and is doing weekly polygraphs where he successfully lies on them until Ethan baits him into joining the dangerous cat and mouse game with Solomon Lane. Brant works directly under CIA Director Hunley, where he attempts to convince them that Hunt is correct about the mysterious syndicate. Ultimately, he enlists Luther to help find Ethan before the CIA has him killed. And this movie finally gets Luther right, or at his best. He's a hacking wizard who is Hunt's oldest friend and biggest cheerleader. 4 points. False. Hunley is not technically an IMF boss until the final scenes, but he is both Brant and Benji's boss while at the CIA, and he of course narratively fills this role, especially the antagonistic side like in 1 and 3. He questions Ethan Hunt's intelligence gathering and character and is determined to hold the man accountable for every wanton act of destruction, even citing events from 1 and 4. And like Ambrose in 2, he is an expert in Ethan's MO and psychology. But he's not too bullheaded to ignore the facts when presented, and by the end he became a true believer in Ethan's mission style. Plus, wait, there is an additional boss, this one in British intelligence over Ilsa Faust. Chief Atlee also acts as an antagonistic force who pushes Ilsa further into harm's way, willing to sacrifice both her and Ethan in order to cover up his own blunder grown out of control. He's far more villainous though and receives his comeuppance at the end, an additional 2 points that makes it 5 points. Antagonist. Solomon Lane embodies the best part of the prior villains. He's a master strategist and mass murderer who intimately understands Ethan Hunt like Sean Ambrose, but instead of being driven by greed, he wants to enact real change across the globe like Kurt Hendricks. However, he's really driven by wanting revenge on the system and to be his own master like Jim in the original. Lane also successfully runs a global network like Owen Davian in 3. He's great. I'm very glad they did not kill him off. The Bone Doctor is his number 2 enforcer goon. He was actually meant to die off in the first scene, but they liked the actor so much they kept him on till the end. Excellent pivot, 4 points. Neutral characters. Now you've got the CIA hell-bent on shutting down IMF and bringing in Ethan Hunt, and you've also got MI6 who created the Rogue Syndicate. And so without counting the two different bosses, it's really just Ilsa Faust in this one. She's deep cover MI6 struggling to perform her duty and what's right as well as what she wants as best as she can. Rebecca Ferguson gives Tom a run for his money with all of the fighting, jumping, and even stunt riding. Oh, and you cannot forget about this shot. Only the very best can escape Ethan Hunt. She is the best addition to the franchise since the man Tom Cruise himself. 3 points. Conflict. How impossible is the impossible mission?
It's impossible.
The heavy fist of the CIA alongside the slippery elusiveness of the Syndicate gets IMF completely disbanded and puts Ethan underground for 6 months. Loyalties to friends and country get tested repeatedly as Solomon Lane outplays everyone, even getting Ethan to steal and decode a bottomless pit of funding for his terrorist network. But Hunt and his team narrowly manage to prove the Syndicate's existence, keep the money just out of Lane's reach, and put the man in a box just like Ethan promised. And during all this, Ilsa has to maintain her cover with Lane, getting closer to death each and every time she chooses to help Ethan. 4 points. Stunts. You've got Tom Cruise holding on to the side of a plane as it actually takes off and goes airborne. There's the big underwater sequence where Tom had to hold his breath for 3 minutes every take. And of course we get Ethan and Ilsa fighting together.
We've never met before, right?
Man, I love this post-climb and jump. Oh, and the slick escape. That could have gone terribly wrong. I love the David versus Goliath fight and all its intricacies on the scaffolding. Excellent use of environment. There's a big motorcycle chase like in 2, but this time Ethan is after the love interest, not the villain. Don't want to overlook this moment here, or when the car goes downstairs, and by the way, Simon Pegg is actually in the passenger seat for all of this insanity. Or the several BMWs that get destroyed for this. Gotta mention these window breaks too. Lovely stuff. Also can't forget the Ilsa versus Bone Doctor 1v1. It's certainly cool. 4 points. Set pieces. If you've forgotten the risk Ethan Hunt is willing to take, this opening catches you up to speed as he puts life and body on the line after everything goes wrong to get the job done. Afterward, he's taken captive but forms a bond with an unlikely ally, this being Ilsa's first test for the Syndicate as well as first date with Ethan. Reality slaps a happy Benji in the face as he realizes his opera trip is actually an unsanctioned mission. This sequence is a masterclass in how to teach an audience geography so that they better understand the conflict unfolding. I could watch this section every single day. It all leads to Ethan staring down 2 shooters with 1 target to protect and only 1 bullet to fire. An impossible choice. So good. So good. Ethan and Benji then follow Ilsa to Casablanca and help her heist another impossible vault. Ethan actually dies here, it was so impossible. But don't worry, he gets right back to it eventually. Possibly the best chase scene where Ilsa runs both from the Syndicate and Ethan, but they're equally invested in clearing their own names while exposing Atlee as they are getting ahead of Lane. And I love the decision to go small and intimate for the final showdown. Boxed in, Ethan utilizes his now non-expendable status to shield Ilsa. We even get Tom running on cobblestone streets just like in 1. And it all climaxes in a full circle moment that's just perfect. 4 points. Ticking clocks. Starts with Ethan buying Benji more time to hack the plane by jumping onto it. Next, Lane's crew cuts Ethan and Ilsa's first date short, as well as their second. An upcoming note spells out doom for the Austrian Chancellor, and puts the pressure on Ethan. Hunt's internal oxygen supply is synced up to the time it'll take Benji's infiltration to go bad if the fake profile does not get placed.
He wants a disc. Unlocked by midnight tonight.
And of course there's a bomb vest put on Benji that runs down closer to 0 than even the nuke in the last movie, plus 3 points. Interpersonal conflicts. Brant disapproves of Benji and Luther's methods. Ilsa and the Bone Doctor disagree on how to break Ethan. Brant attempts to win over Hunley to Ethan's side unsuccessfully. Benji immediately distrusts Ilsa, and right when he comes around to her, she does this. Luther at first distrusts Brant.
That's not your decision to make, Ethan! I am a field agent.
I know the risks.
Ilsa wants out, but Atlee rejects this and sends her into the lion's den where she barely manages to withstand Lane's rage. The team is torn on how to move forward after realizing what they stole in Morocco. The Prime Minister has it out for Atlee now. There is so many good dynamics in Rogue Nation, especially with how Ilsa fits into the story and how she affects things. Gotta give 4 points. Story. Narrative. A congressional committee shuts down IMF for misconduct just as Ethan finally comes face to face with the syndicate's head. Now Ethan must go rogue to track their movements, but after failing to save the Austrian chancellor, CIA Director Hunley decides to make Hunt a priority, which Brandt realizes could spell Ethan's death. The team then unite in Casablanca to witness the mysterious and dangerous Ilsa Faust outmaneuver them. They come to learn she's British intelligence with a handler who cares little for her life, so they expose Atlee to the Prime Minister, which proves the syndicate exists to Hunley, and they finally outsmart Lane, plus 4 points. Character progression. Ethan Hunt finally finds a companion whom he potentially could have a future with, and Ilsa Faust will in fact be significant for the foreseeable future, unlike another love interest. Luther is an active presence again and acts as Ethan's heart, even fighting certain battles for him, while Brent remains as the team's conscience, attempting to keep them within legality, and Benji is along for the ride and an even deeper friend to Ethan. I'd love to give this 4 points, but of course Brent does not return after this, so I've got to give 3.5. Romance. Ethan meets Ilsa for the first time after being captured by the syndicate. The two quickly bond while kicking goons in the head. Date 2 has them leave the opera together and get handsy in the car. Date 3 is a nice trip with fun activities, but continues the trend of not ending so well. Then Ilsa gets to meet the family before having a final date at a restaurant, leading up to a nice evening stroll together. Their dynamic is very much Batman, Catwoman, Sherlock Holmes, Irene Adler, where he represents a clear moral standard of sacrificial service, while she's more bound by obligation and desires freedom from the system. She's also one of the few elite who can outplay Ethan Hunt. And although the two are definitely attracted to and openly flirtatious with each other, the romance has restraint, even refraining from a kiss at the end. I love her character, how she affects the story, how she affects Ethan, and that she's actually a main character throughout the rest of these movies. So, 4 points.
Normally, you and your team would be tasked with infiltrating and disrupting this terrorist network, but we have taken steps to ensure that this will not happen.
Resolution.
Meet the IMF.
Ethan gets his guy, clears the IMF and Ilsa, wins Hunley so far over that not only does he get the IMF reinstated, but he changes jobs to be their boss. It's highly satisfying and leaves you counting the seconds until the next time you get to see these characters. 3.5 points. Mythos, the legend of Ethan Hunt.
I've heard stories. They can't all be true.
Well, let's see what Hunley has to say about that.
Hunt is uniquely trained and highly motivated. A specialist without equal, immune to any countermeasures. There is no secret he cannot extract, no security he cannot breach, no person he cannot become. He has most likely anticipated this very conversation and is waiting to strike in whatever direction we move. Sir, Hunt is the living manifestation of destiny, and he has made you his mission.
Plus 4 points. Spy gear. There's this retro aesthetic to the mission brief and the challenge questions preceding it. There's this knockout gas here which puts down Ethan. We get a return of spy glasses, as well as this automatic lockpick from 4. A spy tablet disguised as a libretto. 3 different guns, all specially made to sneak into this opera. A lipstick drive, how romantic. A wetsuit complete with an oxygen reader and timer. Camera disabling darts, an automatic wheel lock picker. Handprint reader for the car window, a red box, which is
British government uses them to transport state secrets.
Atlee's file deleter, sleeping/truth serum darts, mask, of course, but not for Benji, voice modulator again, and another spy contact. 3 points. Locations and infiltrations. There's Minsk, where Ethan boards a plane after it takes off. Malaysia, where Luther remotely helps assists. this process. London, where Ethan is first captured, and they later prove their case to Hunley and confront Lane face to face. DC, where the IMF is terminated and then reinstated. CIA headquarters, of course, in Langley. Havana, followed quickly by Paris. Vienna, where several parties infiltrate an opera. The Impossible Tourist infill in Casablanca. 4 points. Disavowed. The IMF is decommissioned, which preempts Ethan to go rogue and command Brandt in a similar fashion to how the Secretary does in Ghost Protocol. And unlike 2, the villain's organization, while not made up entirely of IMF agents, instead consists of a rogue nation of presumed dead or missing operatives, including even the disavowed, such as Ilsa. And like Ghost Protocol, her being disavowed is actually part of her cover. However, I will note, Atlee, her boss, did in fact go rogue when he created the syndicate after being shut down by the Prime Minister. Gotta give 4 points. Fake outs. Of course, there is the first mission brief, which comes from the syndicate, not the IMF, and is actually a trap, not a brief. Then Ethan tricks the CIA into going to Cuba instead of Paris, where he is. He's leaving breadcrumbs for them, just like he did for Kittredge and like he did for Anatoly. There's also the moment where Ethan kills this guy, not Ilsa. And we're meant to think Brandt double-crosses the team, but hey, it's all part of the plan. Hunley gets his mind blown. Lane then gets lured into a box thinking he's won. 3 points. Additionally, Ethan's phone booth call shows the other end of the original phone booth call. And the villain gives Ethan his final mission in the movie
is to bring me the unlocked disc by midnight tonight. Now say the words, please.
I accept.
Yes. I knew you would.
Plus 2 points, and that places Rogue Nation at 97 points out of a possible 75. And so I got to give an additional 3 points for being the first mission that I got to see in the theaters. Man, 100 points. Clearly my bias is shining through. How does the movie rank up for you guys? Let me know in the comments below. I'm the real deal. Goodbye.